What if everything you've been told about aging is wrong? What if getting old doesn't have to mean getting sick? What if your brain could stay sharp at 90? What if your heart could actually be healthier in your 80s than it is right now? Sounds like fantasy, right? But there's a place where this is just normal life. An island where 100-year-olds are still working, still dancing, still fully alive, where Alzheimer's basically doesn't exist, where doctors are examining people in their 90s and finding hearts that look like they belong to someone 20 years younger. Scientists flew in expecting to find some rare genetic gift, some biological lottery wins that these people were born with. Instead, they found something that made them stop in their tracks, because these people aren't special. They don't have superhuman DNA. They're not doing anything extreme or expensive or complicated. They're just living in a way that we've somehow completely forgotten. And today, we're about to uncover exactly what that is and why everything they're doing could add decades to your life, starting right now. Stay with me, because once you see this, you can't unsee it. Introducing the island. Ikaria sits roughly 50 kilometers from the Turkish coast, a rugged, mountainous island that's been inhabited for nearly 9,000 years. At first glance, it looks like any other Greek island. Stunning coastlines, whitewashed buildings, that postcard-perfect Mediterranean charm. But spend even a little time here and you'll notice something different. The elderly here don't shuffle carefully down sidewalks. They stride confidently up steep hillsides. They don't sit quietly in corners at family gatherings. They're at the center of everything, laughing, debating, dancing. 95-year-olds tend goats on rocky hillsides. 100-year-olds hold court at the village cafe, sharp-witted and fully present. Aging here doesn't look like slow decline. It looks like living. And it's not just appearance. The medical data backs up what you can see with your own eyes. The science. Dr. Christina Trissohou is a cardiologist who's been conducting a groundbreaking 4-year study on Ikaria's older population. Her findings sound almost too good to be true. She's examined patients in their 80s and 90s whose vascular systems show virtually no signs of the disease you'd normally expect. No major blockages, no major arterial damage. In one case, she found a man whose vascular age was 20 years younger than his actual age. His blood vessels, his heart function, all of it resembled someone decades younger. And it's not just cardiovascular health. Researchers found something even more striking: almost no dementia among Ikaria's elderly population. Think about that for a moment. In most developed countries, dementia rates climb steeply with age. But here, people routinely reach their 90s and beyond with their minds completely intact, sharp, engaged, fully themselves. The research team is now collecting DNA samples, investigating whether genetics plays a role. But here's what's becoming increasingly clear. Genes alone can't explain this. There's something about how these people live that's keeping them healthy far longer than the rest of us. Blue Zones context. Author Dan Buettner has traveled the world identifying what he calls blue zones, rare pockets where people consistently live past 100. Places like Sardinia in Italy, Okinawa in Japan, the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. These locations share certain characteristics. They're often remote, geographically isolated, largely untouched by modern food systems. But even among blue zones, Ikaria stands out. The average maximum life expectancy for humans globally is around 92 years. Ikarians are hitting that mark more consistently than any other population researchers have studied. And here's the fascinating part. None of them is trying to live to 100. No elaborate wellness routines, no biohacking protocols, no obsessive health optimization. Longevity isn't a goal here. It's simply a natural outcome of how life unfolds on this island. So what exactly are they doing? Movement and terrain. First, let's talk about how Ikarians move through their world. The island is steep, mountainous. There are no flat, convenient neighborhoods where you can drive to the store and back without breaking a sweat. If you want to go anywhere, you're walking. And not gentle strolls. We're talking real inclines, rugged paths, terrain that demands your body stay strong and capable. There are no gyms here, no fitness classes, no one's tracking their steps or scheduling workout sessions. Physical activity is simply woven into the fabric of daily existence. One 95-year-old still tends his goats on rocky hillsides. He's climbing terrain that would challenge people a third his age, not because he's following an exercise plan, but because that's just life. This constant, low-intensity movement, day after day, year after year, keeps muscles strong, joints flexible, and cardiovascular systems healthy well into old age. But movement is only part of the equation. Diet. What Icarians eat is equally important. The diet here is what researchers call an extreme version of the Mediterranean diet, almost entirely plant-based, simple and unprocessed. Beans are a staple, eaten nearly every day. Wild greens gathered from the hillsides, vegetables from local gardens, potatoes, and olive oil in generous amounts. Meat is rare. When it appears, it's usually a bit of chicken or goat. Fish, surprisingly, isn't common either. Most centenarians grew up inland, where the coast was a 2-day journey. Everything is cooked from scratch. No packaged foods, no preservatives, no industrial ingredients. One local restaurant owner put it simply, if you're making chicken soup, you need chicken, rice, lemon, salt, and pepper. That's it. You don't need a supermarket for that. You kill a chicken. It sounds harsh to modern ears, but it represents a fundamental truth. Food here comes from the earth and from animals people know and tend themselves. There's an intimacy with food sources that's been completely lost in most of the developed world. Herbs and natural remedies. Then there are the herbs. Wild plants grow all over Icaria's hillsides. For generations, locals have harvested them for teas and natural remedies. One plant, called kombaki, is used specifically for respiratory issues, asthma, chest congestion, and colds. Scientists have analyzed these herbs and found they contain significantly higher concentrations of beneficial compounds compared to the same plants grown elsewhere. Something about Icaria's soil, its climate, perhaps even its naturally occurring minerals makes these plants more potent. Every household has its own herbal traditions, specific teas for specific ailments. Knowledge is passed down through families over centuries. It's not alternative medicine here, it's just medicine, the primary way people have maintained health for thousands of years. And yes, we need to talk about the wine. Icarians drink wine regularly, not to excess, but consistently, usually 2 to 3 glasses per day, primarily in social settings. Research actually suggests that moderate drinkers tend to outlive non-drinkers, though that's not necessarily a recommendation to start if you don't already drink. What matters here is the context. Wine isn't consumed alone or as an escape. It's part of meals, part of the celebrations, part of being together. 100-year-old resident, when asked about his secret to longevity, didn't hesitate. Red wine makes you stronger. Whether it's the antioxidants in the wine itself or simply the ritual of sharing it with others, it's clearly part of the formula. Social life and purpose. But here's where we get to what might be the most important factor: social connection. At festivals across the island, which happen regularly, you'll see something remarkable. There are no separate tables for children and adults, no segregation by age or stage of life. Everyone mingles, everyone participates. 90-year-olds dance alongside 20-year-olds. The elderly aren't shuffled off to retirement homes or left to fill their days alone. They remain fully integrated into community life. They're still useful and still needed, still valued. Nobody here feels abandoned. Nobody feels like their productive years are behind them. And this might be the real secret. Dr. Trissa Hu and her team have come to believe that this sense of purpose, this feeling of remaining essential to your community until the very end, is what keeps people not just alive, but genuinely thriving. Depression is rare, mental decline is rare, because people have reasons to get up every morning, relationships to maintain, and roles to fill.
You can measure cardiovascular health and run genetic tests all you want, but you can't measure what it means to feel like you matter, to know you belong, to have your wisdom sought and your presence celebrated. That's not something you can bottle, but it might be more powerful than any medical intervention we've ever developed. So, what can the rest of us learn from Icaria? We can't all move to a remote Greek island. We can't entirely escape modern food systems or rebuild tight-knit villages from scratch. But we can ask ourselves some important questions. Are we moving our bodies naturally throughout our days? Or are we sitting for hours, then trying to compensate with intense bursts of exercise? Are we eating real food, vegetables, beans, things that grew in soil, or relying on packaged products engineered in factories? Are we maintaining deep connections with others, across generations?
Or are we isolating ourselves by age and stage of life? Most importantly, do we feel useful? Do we have purpose? Do the people around us need us for more than just practical tasks? The people of Icaria aren't trying to live forever. They're not obsessed with longevity or anti-aging. They're simply living in a way that makes sense, moving because they must, eating what grows around them, staying connected because isolation isn't an option, finding meaning because their communities still have room for them. And somehow, without even trying, they've created a blueprint for not just living longer, but living better. Maybe the secret isn't about adding years to your life. Maybe it's about adding life to your years. And if that happens to mean you dance at your great-grandchild's wedding when you're 95, well, that's just a beautiful side effect.